Welcome to Straight Outta Health IT. Getting into health tech is rough, but here's an unfiltered dialogue of healthcare leaders and influencers covering a wide variety of issues affecting healthcare and the health tech industry. And now your host, Christopher Cunny.
Welcome back, Straight Outta Health IT tribe, to another episode of Straight Outta Health IT. I'm your host, Christopher Cunny, your digital transformation strategist and healthcare technology influencer. Today, we're going to dive into the age-old question that's been on debate for many philosophers since the beginning of time. And that's a simple question. That is, are leaders born or are they made? This question really delves into the essence of leadership, exploring the balance between those innate traits and versus learned skills. And the goal ultimately is to help us navigate this understanding of, are we born leaders? Can we become leaders? And then who better to have this conversation with and to enlighten us on this age-old question than none other than Professor J. Bryan Bennett. And who is J. Bryan Bennett, for those who may not know? He is the founder and executive director of the Healthcare Center of Excellence, a privately held research and training and consulting organization established to help healthcare organizations transition to a more analytics-focused leadership development strategy. He started HCOE after hearing the challenges healthcare leaders were having in implementing predictive analytics programs. Many were concerned about reinventing the wheel when it comes to analytics, since success experienced by other healthcare organizations was not shared, and that they were challenged with identifying and keeping analytic talent. He's been recognized as one of the top African-American leaders in healthcare for multiple years, 2018, 19, 20, and beyond, by Becker's Hospital Review. Dr. Bennett is a healthcare futurist with extensive experience creating and implementing healthcare transformation solutions in both acute care and ambulatory settings. He's the author of multiple books: The Path to Elite Level Leadership, the 5-Step Program for Measurable Leadership Improvement, Prescribing Leadership in Healthcare, Curing the Challenges Facing Today's Healthcare Leaders, and Competing on Healthcare Analytics, the Foundational Approach to Population Health Analytics. He's also on the faculty of Northwestern University and the University of Maryland's Global Campus. Again, he's been a recognized thought leader in the space of leadership, and I am so excited to have him here today to help us answer this question: are leaders born or are they made? So let's go ahead and get right into this conversation. And again, I sound like a broken record, I'm sure, for many of my listeners, but I like to always start my conversations with understanding the person I'm talking to and their why. What got you into this industry? What compels you to start studying this concept of leadership? Your personal journey and your personal story. Why don't you take just a couple minutes and share with the Straight Outta Health IT tribe your story?
My brief story is I've been a leader since high school. I went from club presidents and saw all that kind of stuff to being on the board of directors of nonprofit organizations like Big Brothers and Eagle College Fund, and I was 22 years old. So I've had a strong leadership journey. Both my parents were good leaders. I had a good example also. And over time, I found a great mentor. He's been with me for 40 years, not to give away my whole age.
But you started when you were a leader. Yeah, you were leading.
That's right. That's
Head
right.
Start in kindergarten. So I get it.
That's right. But the thing is, I started off working in healthcare, so with clients. I wrote a book on healthcare analytics, which you talked about. And one of the things I realized was a challenge there was the leadership and healthcare leadership. And that's why I started making a deep dive into the leadership into the pool, because I've been through a lot of technology changes in my career. And when I found that organizations and projects where the leader was good and involved, they were successful. When projects where the leader was not very involved or not a very good leader, they failed or they struggled. So I said, I need to focus on this because healthcare is on a big transition. It needs some of my experience right now.
Absolutely. We can definitely learn from, obviously, those great leaders, but we also can learn what not to do from those who are also right as well, too. So you can provide perspective on both. Thank you again for sharing that brief story and journey with us. Again, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this conversation. And let's just go ahead and start with the big question. Is there such a thing as a natural born leader, or are individuals cultivated and shaped into becoming good leaders?
The answer is yes.
Of course it is, right? Please expound on that.
Natural leaders.
Yes.
Okay. You can be natural leaders and you can cultivate it. One thing I always say is leadership is like dancing. Some people are naturally better than others.
No, okay.
One can get better with practice.
Right.
The ones who have some natural abilities, some innate qualities, they're good and they have a little step up, a little above other people, but they can become better with a little bit more training and education and practice. Whereas others who may not have those natural abilities, they can learn some of those natural abilities through education and cultivate those through experience.
Yeah, I love that analogy, by the way. I just to interrupt you real quick. I don't think I've ever heard anyone put it in that perspective, that it's like dancing. Some people are naturally can feel the rhythm, and then some people have to be taught how to find a rhythm.
I will never be Michael Jackson. Okay,
I'm actually a pretty good dancer. But I think I'm
there you go.
Worth that. Yeah.
There you go. So I found over the years, though, the people who have some natural abilities, the innate qualities we call them, they have a higher leadership ceiling.
Right.
Because you get more things done because they have all the tools at their disposal already, and they can get better and develop those.
No, that's great. Again, I completely agree with that perspective. It can be one or the other, right? It doesn't have to be a line in the sand. You can be born a leader and have those natural qualities, and they're just innate. To your point, I can hear the rhythm of leadership. And then there's those of us who may not always hear that rhythm, but can be taught those traits. And through repetition and coaching and mentoring can develop that rigor and that understanding of those qualities and apply them in leadership settings. When you think about a leader and some of the qualities of a leader, or a good leader, I should say, because they're bad leaders, right? What are some of those natural qualities that you think are someone is born with versus those that they learn or cultivate over time?
I'm going to go from the ones that are easiest to learn, even though you're innately, to the ones that are hardest.
Okay.
So the first one is risk taking. Okay, if you're risk averse, you're not going to be a very good leader. Part of leadership is making decisions based on incomplete information. You have to go with that gut feeling and say, okay, I think we need to do this. I can't wait for the next 10% additional solution to come in. So I'm going to go with that, risk taking. Other one is vision. You have to be able to not just have a vision for where you need to get the team to go to or organizations to go to, but you also have to be able to clearly articulate that vision.
I was going to say, be able to describe it. And to your point.
Right. The people don't understand. You can have the vision all you want to, but if people don't understand where you're going,
right.
And both of those, risk-taking and the vision, you can learn some of those. You can take classes on how to get better at that.
Mm-hmm.
The other two, a little bit harder. That's the empathy. That's I call that a heart set. You have to have feel for people in their heart, know who they are, what they're good at, what their desires are in their life, and help them get to those points that they want to get to in their career.
Hey, can you teach empathy? Can you actually teach that?
You can teach a little bit of it.
Okay.
It's a little harder to teach.
Sure.
And then there's humility, which is knowing that you're not better than anybody else. That
right.
Everybody has to contribute and so forth. So when I look at it, when I put it on a slide and a scale, the line goes starting from humility all the way down to risk taking as far as what is innate versus learned. You can learn humility and empathy somewhat, but it has to be, it's people who have been more naturally will do better than the ones who are trying to do it at a prescription.
Okay. Artificially or pretending to be empathetic.
That's right. Exactly.
Right. What about charisma? You hear a lot of folks talk about this thing around charisma and confidence. How much of that is important in being a good versus a great leader? I
think charisma is really part of empathy. I consider myself, you try to diagnose what your superpowers are as a leader. I say I'm an empathetic leader. I get to know my people and I get to talk to them. I get to go in and meet them on Monday mornings and when we worked in the office and say, how are you doing? How was your weekend? How was Sally's soccer game and so forth like that? You get to know them and so forth. And that's part of the charisma part. Talk to them, be able to have a natural conversation with people.
Exactly.
If you're empathetic, you can do that a lot easier than if you're not.
So conversely, let's talk a little bit of what makes a poor leader.
Poor leader is someone who basically doesn't care about anybody else. All they are is about them getting the next promotion or the next opportunity, whatever like that. They don't care if they're interested in just the numbers. They don't compliment their people. They'll help build people up. They tear people down. And I call them toxic leaders. I work for someone.
Okay,
before,
I like that.
It's no fun. Okay,
Right.
And I just wrote an article about toxic leadership a little while ago, and that's some of the most difficult situations. And what we found, we're using our analytic tools, we can find a toxic leader.
Mm-hmm.
The studies where we've done, you go through and you rate people on, they do the self-assessment, team assesses them. And unlike a 360 where it's written, this is all quantitative.
Sure. So I want you to hold on. I want you to hold on to that because I want you to come back and talk about your tools and the methodology that you have developed around assessing leadership. So hold on to that. That's a teaser for the listeners. That's right. That's a teaser for the listeners too. So hopefully they'll stay tuned. They can think about how you go about assessing leadership as well too. So give me some examples, if you can, where you've seen someone, whether they're famous or just someone you've seen growing up or throughout your career, that you thought this was a really good leader and how they go about motivating and getting folks to get tasks done, buying into their vision. Do you have any examples of that?
I do. I talked about my mentor before.
Right.
Yeah, he came out of General Electric a long time ago. He was in Jack Welch was there, and he was working 2 levels down from Jack Welch, and he was a great guy, M&A guy, real sharp. But people who worked with him loved working with him. I think I said people who are good leaders, people love working for them. They'll follow them wherever they go, all that kind of stuff. So he was very personable, and he took an interest in me early on in my career, and we got to know each other, and we're still friends. He's retired now in his 80s, and we still talk on a regular basis.
That's great.
But in healthcare, one person that I really want to that stands out to me, was Dr. Toby Cosgrove.
Oh, okay. And why?
Because when I wrote my first book, I didn't know what I was doing. So I just sent out a bunch of books to people I thought were good leaders in healthcare. And I sent him a copy of my book. Of all the books I sent out, maybe 20 different copies of the book. He was the only one to send me a personal note back. Thank you for the copy of the book. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. I said, wow, that's pretty.
That says a lot.
Yeah. So when I decided to write my leadership book, I said, let me call Dr. Cosgrove. So I called him up, talked to his admin, scheduled an appointment with me, and I got him online. We talked for about an hour. At the end of the conversation, I already knew people who worked with him, who worked for Cleveland Clinic. They just love him. And he comes in the room with conquerors coming into the room and stuff like that.
That charisma.
That charisma, that's right. When I talked to him, we had a nice conversation, really good. He's a very humble person. At the end of the conversation, he said, Bryan, I didn't make the job made me. I said, whoa.
Oh, interesting. Really?
Because Cleveland Clinic's history, 30 years ago, they were nothing. They were just a regional hospital.
Sure.
He grew into one of the top 5 in the whole world now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because of him, but he didn't want to take credit for it. He had his people involved and all that stuff. And wow, that's really profound.
That is profound. And again, that says a lot about that servant-minded leadership perspective as well, too. It's not about him taking the accolades and the data boys for the success, but he recognized that it took that entire village buying into his vision to make Cleveland Clinic what it is today. And I would imagine also not being, to your point earlier, not being afraid to fail and being able to adapt to change and being resilient in challenging times, I would imagine would be some of those other key attributes of a good leader as well, too. And then I know for me personally, throughout my career, I've had some really strong leaders as well, too, and that were also mentors, and the importance of them being open to that concept of being a mentor and helping to develop the next generation of leaders. How would you respond to that being an important attribute or an attribute needed to be an effective leader?
I tell people it's just as important to have a mentor as to be a mentor. I enjoy mentoring young people who, especially start out their career or maybe a few years in their career, and just sit down and just talking to them, just understand what they're trying to go to, what their goals are, and try to help them to navigate those. Because even as a seasoned professional, I still enjoy the people I talk to who I bounce my business ideas off of.
Sure.
This is what I'm thinking. What do you think about that?
Exactly.
Everyone needs that. You need that feedback. If you don't have that, it's really hard to make sure you're on the right path.
So what are some of those classic mistakes young professionals make when they're trying to vie for a leadership role? Any thoughts or ideas you can share with those younger listeners who say, hey, one day I want to be the CEO of this health system or this company?
But one of these is really important is to make sure you have what it takes to be a leader. Leadership is not easy. And some people should not be leaders, and some people, and that's the problem, especially when organizations promote people, if they're a good programmer or they're a good database administrator or whatever, and they want to promote them to be a team lead. And something that doesn't work out. Several years ago, I had the pleasure of working on a project for Microsoft.
Sure.
They asked me to help develop their first global analytics department. Mm-hmm. They had been outsourcing it for years. And so they said, Bryan, we need someone to put together organization chart, job descriptions, and career paths. And the career paths was the most interesting part of it because they were talking about they want to have multiple career paths. People who wanted to be up the management rank, have lean teams and so forth, and ones just wanted to be a DBA the rest of the career. They can still be very productive and very fruitful employees. But they don't want the management responsibility, which that's fine.
Sure. I think, and to your point, because I think it was the opposite for me. I got my degree in computer science and mathematics, and I was a developer in my early part of my career, and I knew early on I didn't want to be a developer. I wasn't all that great at it, quite honestly. But someone saw something in me and started to position me into more leadership type roles within my organization as well too. And at the time, I was very introverted as well too. I was a classic programmer who liked to sit behind a computer and do their own thing. Feeling. Yeah, exactly, and do their own thing. Yes. Observe and not necessarily put themselves out there. But again, I think I attribute that to great mentors and great leaders that I've had who saw something else in me and cultivated those things that gave me the confidence I needed to step into more leadership roles as well too. So let's talk a little bit about, since you touched on it earlier, won't hold our listeners in suspense anymore. You've created a methodology, right? An approach of how you assess someone's current level of capabilities, I'll use that term for now, around leadership. So talk to us a little bit about that methodology and those key factors and how someone can assess where they are in that continuum.
Okay. When I was writing my first book on leadership, I was sitting down with someone who was helping me with some of the analytic tools as far as the personality assessments. And she said, Bryan, if you could figure out a way to analyze, to assess leadership, you'd be in a great shape. Perfect. So challenge accepted. I work with some people and put together an assessment tool. It's based off of having the understanding human behavior, because it's behavior based. We're doing these human behavior, using my marketing research abilities on how to put together good questions.
Sure.
On the survey. Then use analytics to say, how do you get the message to prove that you are where you are on the leadership spectrum? So we developed this tool that's been iterated over several years, and now we've got a really good version of it, and especially with the visualizations, where we have, and it comes out with a radar chart. When we have now, since we've been doing this for 8 years, we have all this data on people, hundreds of people we've done this assessment with, and we compare individuals to the population average. They know exactly where they are versus the population. Even better than that, we've asked on each time they take the survey, someone takes the survey, we ask what their organization level is. So we can not only take it by a general population average, we say if you're a C-level executive, we can compare you to all the C-level executives.
Within your
Exactly. And one of these that I mentioned before about toxic leaders, you can compare them. We iterated this a couple of years ago to where the individual does their assessment and then their team assesses them, people who work for them and their peers, and the people who work above them. And we compare that to what they think they are. And a lot of times it's easy to find a lot of times because the person assesses themselves as great and all of the no, you suck. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's easy to figure out.
Yeah. So have you seen situations where to that point, someone who thought they were really a solid top tier leader or even toxic in some cases leader, can they actually change? Can you actually read their way of operating to become a better or a great leader?
It can be done. And that takes a good leader above them.
Right.
So in this case, when we did a follow-up with the client, and we asked about this person, saying, how are they doing? And it turns out they've been working with the person, helping them out, helping them figure out what their weaknesses are, what they need to work on, and giving them like a game plan. This is what you need to work on.
Sure.
And they've been been following that and getting better at it. So this person can improve it, but it takes a leader above them to help them get to that point.
Can a great leader be even a better leader? If they're already a top tier leader, can they improve any more than where they are today? You talked about the example of the CEO from Cleveland Clinic. Are there areas where, he was constantly trying to improve himself, or where you just in general think everyone can improve in some area or some fashion? Or once you hit or is there a plateau you hit and say, hey, I'm here, I'm not going to get any better, hopefully not get any worse as a leader. So throwing that out.
I think that's a really good point, because I found that so many leaders, especially to the C-level, if they think they got to that plateau and think that they're okay and not to know anything else about leadership. And that's nothing could be further from the truth. Mm-hmm. I tell people that the moment you believe you have nothing else to learn about leadership is the moment you cease becoming a leader.
Oh,
it should be a lifelong journey. You have to keep practicing. Even me, I've been studying it. I teach it at the university level, teach it to corporations, individuals, and so forth. This always seems I'm trying to improve on as a leader also.
Sure.
So you have to have that open mindset to want to be able to keep learning about being a leader.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I want to go back to, again, some of our younger leaders, younger individuals early in their career who are wanting to be good leaders. What advice would you give them in terms of how do they start that journey, and what are some of the things they need to do to start preparing themselves for becoming leaders in their organizations, but not only just becoming leaders, becoming good and great leaders in their own organization? Any words, wisdom, or advice to them?
Yes, I think the first thing you have to invest in yourself. Now, there's a big investment, the small ones, reading books. I know when I was in college, I was reading a lot of leadership books, and the 1 Minute Manager and all those basic leadership books back then, just to better understand that. Do the books, go to conferences. If you're lucky to get invited to go to a conference, go there and listen to them, especially the leadership tracks. If there's something you want to do, go there and listen to them. I think that's important. Also, you also want to find other people where you can discuss it. Find a mentor, because a mentor is going to help you so much more in your lifetime than just about your work, your career.
Right.
And a mentor should typically be somebody outside of your organization.
Okay.
They're going to give you the best advice, because you're not going to, if you're working with somebody, you're not going to tell them, I don't like this company, I want to quit. You're not going to tell that to somebody who works for the company with you.
Or you may make the mistake and do that, right?
That's right.
And it comes right to bite you.
It helps somebody outside, or the advantage of having somebody inside is they can see how you actually perform. But I say you could have both. Right. Inside help you out to direct and say, Bryan, I would have handled this way. But then you also have somebody outside and say, this is what I did, and what it was.
No, absolutely.
Invest in yourself and I know a lot of times getting individuals to buy into leadership programs on their own, but if you really have that urge to be a leader, take a leadership class from somebody. There's a lot of them out there. Some of them are not very expensive. We're developing the programs we're doing called Leadership Circles. We meet monthly there's a small amount. You just meet monthly and go over deep dives on leadership.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great suggestions. One of the things that I do a lot of mentoring as well too, and one of the things I highly encourage a lot of folks who are trying to move into leadership roles is, and they may not always have the opportunity depending on the timing or situation internally in their organization, but to get involved in leadership roles outside of their organization. There's an association, there's programs and things of that nature they can get involved with and become committee members, local leaders, end up getting on some boards, and take advantage of those opportunities where even if you don't have the chance internally in your own organization to step into leadership roles, you can still gain and grow your abilities outside of your 9 to 5 in some of these other venues as well too. I highly encourage that as well too.
I agree. You can lead volunteers, or you can get them to do things that they need to do.
That's right. They're not paid to do it. Exactly.
That's right.
That's a good point. It's a very good point. So I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about your book, or books, I should say, and your consulting services as well before we wrap this episode up as well, too. If I was I am, because I'm a lifelong learner as well, too. But if I was early in my career and wanted to start to get some words of advice, which one of your books should I pick up first?
The last two are very similar. The one is Prescribing Leadership in Healthcare and The Path to Lead-Level Leadership are pretty much the same. I wrote lead-level leadership during COVID. Basically, it was more for more general audience as opposed to healthcare focused one. So that was pick up my latest book is probably the best one because it has more involved leadership philosophy, so to speak.
Sure.
But the book we're different from other leadership development is I don't focus on leadership skills. Mm-hmm. I focus on the leadership process, because you have a leadership process that's going to help you get better at whatever you're trying to do, compared to elite athletes. That's how then you have the elite title, the elite athletes, like the Michael Jordans and the Tom Brady's of the world and so forth, and snowmiles. They didn't just learn one thing and say, okay, I'm done. I can just do this all the rest of my career. They had to keep getting better at it.
Exactly.
So same thing, leaders need to keep working at it, get better at it. So it's process-based. Yeah, and then it's personalized. You figure out who you are as a person and as a leader and as the situation is, and you develop your leadership vision and philosophy from that. And that's how you go through it. And that's a challenge, because in a lot of leadership programs, you come in and you learn the way to do leadership. I said, you can't do it that way. You got to be personalized.
Yeah, this probably is a topic for another day, so I've got to definitely have you back on. But I'm just curious, just quickly, if you could, are there any specific leadership traits that a woman needs to exhibit more of versus a man, and vice versa? I've had some conversations, and I do mentor a handful of women who are moved into leadership positions. And I know my conversations with them, a lot of the challenges and issues they have, in some cases are similar, but in some cases are different than men who are vying for leadership roles as well, too. I'm just curious from your perspective, are these traits consistent no matter if you're a man, woman, same, different gender, whatever your choice is? Right. Are these leadership skills the same across all backgrounds, demographics, et cetera?
Yes, they're pretty much the same. It's just a matter of between, for instance, if it's on gender, they could be perceived differently. But when a man shows that he could be he's a pushover, that kind of stuff, or once she's being soft or whatever, or she's good, there's a lot of perception, and they have to make sure that they use those qualities to their advantage in their leadership. And that's because you have to be able to say, this is how you use that to be an effective leader.
Wonderful. I definitely would want to come back and have you back on and delve into that kind of lens around it, leadership for men, leadership for women as well. See if there's any nuggets and words of wisdom you can share around that. But if someone wanted to obviously get one of your books or all your books, or wanted to engage you and understand how to assess their leadership organizations, what's the best way for them to reach you?
They go to our website, Healthcare COE, that's the Center of Excellence, healthcarecoe.org/contact. And there's a form there you can fill out, and I can talk about the links to the books, speaking engagements, where I'm going to be and stuff like that, or just to ask questions and so forth. So go to that, healthcarecoe.org/contact.
All right. Perfect. Okay, listeners, I hope you hear that, tribe. Pick up his books and look at his tools. I personally have had a chance to review them, and can tell you they have enriched my experience and have helped me hone my skills as a leader as well. So I highly encourage you to check them out. Okay, I'm going to leave you with the last word, Professor Bennett. If you had to give one piece of advice to individuals who are, again, either struggling with being an effective leader or maybe even a toxic leader, either to some degree, what piece of advice would you give them?
As someone who's struggling with leadership or they're having some challenges, one of these we found in all of our assessments and our consulting on leadership is people not having that external voice. Part of our process is a reflection. That's the internal voice. They need that external voice. That's the mentor and a coach. And you really need both, because the coach is more of a short-term focus, how you get to your next position, your next promotion, that kind of stuff. The mentor is looking at your whole career, the whole long-term career. So get that external voice, either the coaching and mentoring, because that's going to help you out long-term in your career.
Wonderful. We'll leave it at that. I want to thank my guest, Professor J. Bryan Bennett. He is the founder and executive director of the Healthcare Center of Excellence, the author of many amazing books on the subject of leadership. Again, I highly encourage you to check him out. And if you are interested in getting in contact with him, please check the transcript notes for his contact information. or reach out to me directly as well. I'm happy to connect you with this amazing gentleman. That's it, folks. Another episode of Straight Outta Health IT is in the can. I do appreciate my tribe and your continued support. You guys have just helped me take this podcast to another level, and I sincerely appreciate your listenership, you sharing it, supporting it, saying great things about it. It means a lot to me. And as always, let's make this episode go viral. If you liked it, please share it with 2 or 3 friends, families, colleagues, enemies, anyone that you think could grow and benefit from a wonderful message. Exactly. We all need help, no matter where we are. And that being said, take care, everyone. See you on the next episode of Straight Outta Health IT. Thanks again, and God bless.
Thank you so much for listening to Straight Outta Health IT. We hope you enjoyed today's guest. For more unfiltered dialogue of healthcare leaders and influencers, be sure to tune in next week. For the show notes, transcripts, and resources, please visit Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform. We invite you to give us feedback by reaching out to Christopher Cunny on LinkedIn, just searching for Straight Outta Health IT, and you'll find us. We are constantly having live discussions about diverse topics in the industry.